The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly around Research Station Delta 7, a lonely outpost floating in the outer rim of the spiral arm. Inside, James Miller stared at his monitors, fighting back another yawn as he logged his daily xenobiology reports. 3 years of studying space creatures had taught him patience, but today felt different. A warning light flashed on his console. Something large had triggered the station's outer sensors. James straightened in his chair, fully awake now. The scanner showed a mass roughly the size of a small shuttle, moving erratically near the station's research bay. "Computer analysis," James called out, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "Unknown biological entity. No match in current database. Caution advised." The station's AI responded in its usual monotone. James grabbed his emergency kit and hurried to the observation deck. Through the reinforced windows, he saw it, a creature unlike anything recorded in human history. Its body shifted between solid and translucent states, with patterns of bioluminescence pulsing across its surface. Most striking were its eyes, all 12 of them, arranged in a spiral pattern, each one glowing with an intelligence that sent shivers down James's spine. The creature was injured. Dark fluid leaked from a wound in what appeared to be its side, though with its constantly shifting form, James couldn't be sure. It pressed itself against the station's outer hull, leaving strange markings that seemed almost deliberate. "Computer, magnify those markings," James ordered. The wall display zoomed in, showing what looked like mathematical sequences. His heart raced. This wasn't random. The creature was trying to communicate. The station's AI chirped again. "Warning. Creature's biological signature indicates extreme threat potential. Station protocols require immediate defensive measures." James shook his head. "Override defense protocols. Authorization Miller 7 Delta. Override denied. Threat level exceeds individual authorization. Contacting Central Command." Cursing under his breath, James knew he had minutes at most before Central Command ordered him to activate the station's defense systems. The creature pressed against the hull again, its movements becoming weaker. The patterns it left behind were changing, becoming simpler, more urgent. "Computer, open Research Bay 3. Activate containment field level maximum. Action not recommended. Please wait for Central Command instructions." Emergency override. Authorization code. Miller 7 Delta Red. Medical emergency protocol. The computer paused. Then the familiar hiss of airlock mechanisms filled the corridor. James grabbed his medkit and ran to Research Bay 3. The massive doors slid open, revealing the creature now trapped within the containment field's blue glow. Up close, it was even more magnificent. Its body rippled like liquid metal, but with an organic fluidity that no machine could match. The wound was worse than he'd thought, a deep gash that pulsed with each movement. The creature's eyes focused on James, all 12 adjusting and dilating in perfect synchronization. It pressed against the containment field, leaving more patterns, this time simpler, repeated over and over. James stepped closer, studying the marks. They looked like basic geometric shapes arranged in sequences. "You're trying to talk to me, aren't you?" he whispered. The computer's voice cut through his wonder. Central Command responding. Orders. Terminate unknown entity immediately. Extreme biological threat detected. Repeat. Terminate immediately. The creature's eyes fixed on James again, and in that moment, he saw something that defied everything he'd been taught about predator species. He saw fear, intelligence, and a desperate plea for help. James took a deep breath and made his decision. "Computer, belay that order. Prepare emergency medical protocols instead. Warning. Action violates direct orders. Security measures will be initiated." "Then we better work fast," James muttered, pulling supplies from his medkit. He approached the containment field, heart pounding but hand steady. The creature watched him, its patterns changing to slower, steadier pulses. As James adjusted the field to allow his medical tools through, He spoke softly to the creature. "I don't know if you can understand me, but I'm going to help you. Just, please don't eat me." The creature's response was unexpected. Its patterns shifted to mirror the rhythm of James's words, and its eyes dimmed slightly, almost like a nod of understanding. In that moment, as alarms blared warnings through the station and Central Command's angry messages filled his comm channel, James knew he was about to either make the discovery of a lifetime or become the galaxy's most interesting cautionary tale. Either way, there was no turning back now. The next 6 hours in Research Station Delta 7 were the most intense of James's life. He worked frantically to treat the creature's wound while ignoring the increasingly threatening messages from Central Command blaring through the station's speakers. Final warning. Research Station Delta 7. A stern voice announced, "You are harboring a Class X predator. Your actions have been deemed a threat to galactic security. A containment team has been dispatched." James barely heard them. He was too focused on the remarkable healing taking place before his eyes. The creature's tissue responded to his basic medical treatments in extraordinary ways, adapting and incorporating the synthetic healing compounds into its own cellular structure. "Look at that," he muttered, watching through his microscanner as the creature's cells restructured themselves. "You're not just healing, you're evolving." The creature's 12 eyes tracked his movements, and its body continued producing complex patterns. James had set up a basic recording system, and the computer was analyzing the sequences. "Pattern analysis complete," the station AI announced. "Detected mathematical constants, including representations of pi, phi, and several advanced quantum equations." James stepped back, amazed. "You're not just intelligent. You're trying to prove it to me, aren't you?" The creature's surface rippled in what seemed like agreement. It began creating new patterns, more complex than before. The station's AI worked to decode them. "Warning," the computer interrupted. "Incoming transmission from Science Director Wells." A holographic image appeared, an older man with steel-gray hair and cold eyes. "Miller, you're committing career suicide. That thing you're protecting has destroyed 3 colony worlds. It's part of a species that exists only to hunt and kill." The creature shifted, its patterns becoming more urgent. James noticed it was trying to access the station's data terminals through the containment field. "Sir, with all due respect, I think we've been wrong about them," James argued. "This being is showing signs of advanced intelligence. It's attempting to communicate through mathematical constants. No simple predator could do that." "Those patterns are a hunting technique," Wells snapped. "It uses them to hypnotize prey. In 20 minutes, a containment team will dock with your station. They will terminate that creature, and you will face charges for endangering human lives." The transmission cut off. James turned to the creature, which had gone still. All 12 of its eyes were focused on the space where Wells's hologram had been. "Computer, give me access to all records of Class X predator attacks," James ordered. "Access denied. Files classified." The creature suddenly pressed against the containment field, its patterns changing rapidly. The computer began translating. "Warning. Detected attempt to interface with station systems." Instead of stopping the creature, James watched in amazement as it somehow managed to project its own data through the field, creating a 3-dimensional display in the air. The images showed scenes very different from the official reports. Peaceful encounters with other species, protection of endangered creatures, and finally, brutal attacks by what looked like heavily armed poaching ships. "They weren't random attacks," James whispered. "You were defending those worlds from something else, weren't they?" The creature's patterns pulsed in what seemed like confirmation. It began showing more images, entire ecosystems under protection, rare species being guarded, and then the arrival of massive hunting fleets that destroyed everything in their path. The station's proximity alarm suddenly blared. "Alert! Containment vessel approaching. Docking in 15 minutes." James made his decision. "Computer, begin emergency evacuation procedures. Transfer all recent data to my personal drive." Warning. Action will result in immediate termination of employment and potential criminal charges. Just do it, James ordered. He turned to the creature. I'm going to lower the containment field. If I'm wrong about you, I guess this is where I die. If I'm right. He took a deep breath. We need to get to my research shuttle before they dock. The creature's patterns changed to something new. Simple, steady pulses that somehow felt reassuring. As James entered the shutdown code for the containment field, he knew he was either making first contact with an entirely misunderstood species, or he was about to become the galaxy's shortest cautionary tale. The field disappeared with a soft hum. The creature moved forward, its massive form flowing like liquid metal, until it stood directly in front of James. Then, to his astonishment, it began to shrink, condensing itself into a more manageable size. Time was running out. They had 14 minutes to escape, and the real adventure was just beginning. James's research shuttle rocketed through space, its engines straining at maximum capacity. He glanced at the creature, now condensed to roughly his own size, sitting calmly in the co-pilot's seat. The being he'd decided to call Rex, short for remarkable existence, was studying the ship's control panels with obvious interest. They're still following us, James muttered, checking the rear sensors. 3 containment vessels were in pursuit, their weapons systems fully charged. Computer, what's our status? Fuel reserves at 64%. Shields holding at 82%. Unable to maintain current speed for more than 2 hours. Rex suddenly moved, its body flowing toward the shuttle's main computer interface. Before James could react, patterns of light began flowing from the creature directly into the system. The ship's displays flickered, then changed to show entirely new information. What are you? James started, then fell silent as he watched Rex essentially rewrite the shuttle's operating system in real time. The engine's efficiency increased by 40%, and new navigation routes appeared on the main screen. That's incredible, James breathed. You're not just intelligent, you're technologically advanced beyond anything we've seen. Rex's patterns shifted to form what James was beginning to recognize as agreement. Then, something even more remarkable happened. The creature began manipulating the ship's communication system, converting its patterns into basic text on the screen. Protect. Guard. Duty. James stared at the words. You're trying to tell me about your species. Yes, we guard life. All life. But the reports, they say you destroyed entire worlds. Rex's patterns turned darker, more complex. New words appeared. QORUPT ones. They hunt. Destroy. We stop them. A warning alarm blared. One of the containment ships had managed to get within firing range. The shuttle rocked as their first shot grazed the shields. Rex's patterns became urgent. More text flowed across the screen. Trust. Show you truth. The creature extended a tendril toward James's forehead. He hesitated for just a moment, then nodded. Show me. The instant Rex made contact, James's mind exploded with images and sensations. He saw vast fields of stars through compound eyes, felt the joy of flowing through space without a ship, experienced the deep sense of purpose that drove Rex's species. They were the guardians, the protectors of life throughout the galaxy. He saw the truth about the destroyed colonies. They weren't colonies at all, but massive poaching operations disguised as settlements. Rex's people had tried to stop them peacefully at first, but the poachers had responded with violence, forcing the guardians to take decisive action. The contact broke as another blast rocked the shuttle. James blinked, his mind reeling from the experience. Your people, you're not predators at all. You're protectors. But why can't you prove it? Why not show everyone what you showed me? Tigo or UPT ones. High places. Block truth. Understanding dawned. There are people in the Galactic Council working with the poachers, aren't they? They're the ones who labeled you as predators. Rex's confirmation came just as the shuttle's computer announced, warning, shield failure imminent. containment vessel launching boarding pods. James clenched his jaw. We need somewhere to hide, somewhere to gather evidence. He looked at Rex. Do you trust me? The creature's pattern swirled in what James now recognized as amusement. More text appeared. TRUSTED new first in station. Could have stayed. Saw your heart. Despite their dire situation, James smiled. There's an abandoned mining facility in the Cetus Arm. The radiation from the old cores masks most scans. We might be able to. He never finished the sentence. Rex suddenly flowed around him like a protective cocoon, just as a containment ship's blast finally broke through their failing shields. The shot that should have vaporized them both somehow reflected off Rex's surface, shooting back toward their pursuers. In the chaos that followed, Rex's patterns formed one more message. Neno do we proti each other. As James plotted their escape route to the mining facility, he realized something profound. He hadn't just made first contact with an alien species. He'd made a friend who was willing to risk everything to protect him, just as he had done in that research station. The real question was, how many more secrets were they about to uncover together? The abandoned mining facility on Cetus 7 loomed before them, a massive structure of corroded metal and forgotten dreams. James guided the shuttle through a gap in the facility's outer shell, Rex's improvements to the engines allowing them to navigate the treacherous debris field with surprising grace. Not exactly five-star accommodation, James muttered as they landed in what appeared to be an old maintenance bay. But the radiation from the cores should keep us hidden for a while. Rex flowed from the co-pilot's seat, its patterns forming brief words on the shuttle's display. SAFE here. Temporary. The creature moved to the shuttle's rear viewport, all 12 eyes scanning their surroundings. James checked their supplies while monitoring the facility's ancient systems that still functioned. We've got maybe 3 days of food and water, he said. The good news is the facility's power core is still working at minimal capacity. Bad news. He paused as another scan completed. We've got company. Rex's patterns shifted to alert mode as 6 heavily armed ships appeared on their long-range sensors, moving in a search pattern through the debris field. Hunters, not military. James frowned. Bounty hunters. Already. POACHR ships. Pretend hunters. Real killers. Before James could respond, Rex suddenly went completely still. Its patterns changed to deep, pulsing red. New words flashed urgently on the screen. Morikoam. My kind. Sense them. As if on cue, the facility's old sensors detected multiple large objects moving through space toward their location. They were similar in size to Rex, but traveled without ships, moving through the vacuum of space as easily as fish through water. Your people, James whispered. Are they coming to help? Rex's patterns turned complex, worried. Tuoming to JDG. You. Me. Von den Noten normal. Judge, what do you mean? The creature's response was interrupted by a massive explosion that rocked the entire facility. The bounty hunters had found them. Moosed Haidi. Deep. James grabbed his emergency pack as Rex flowed around him, creating a protective barrier. Together, they moved through the facility's dark corridors, the sound of boarding crafts echoing through the metal structure. They're not just here for the bounty, are they? James asked as they descended deeper into the facility. No. Want SECWAR ETAS. Your mind knows true faith now. They reached what appeared to be an old processing center, massive machines looming in the darkness. Rex's natural bioluminescence provided just enough light to navigate by. Suddenly, the air itself seemed to ripple. 3 beings similar to Rex materialized in the chamber, their much larger forms filling the space with swirling patterns of light. James felt Rex move slightly in front of him, its patterns becoming formal, almost ceremonial. The largest of the new arrivals moved forward, its patterns complex and authoritative. Rex's surface displayed the translation. Why beyond with Pirakin? Why share si kiwaitis? Rex's response was bold, its pattern straight and clear. Nenoti paria. Peart in air. Puroti kitor. Showed truth when there is lie. The exchange was interrupted by the sound of weapons fire and approaching footsteps. The bounty hunters were getting closer. The three new arrivals observed James for what felt like an eternity. Finally, the leader's patterns shifted. Kioro v. Worth. Both alive or beauty die. With that, they vanished, leaving James and Rex alone, just as the first bounty hunters burst into the chamber. Freeze, a gruff voice commanded. The creature is property of the Galactic Council now. Step away, and you might live. James looked at the 6 heavily armed figures, then at Rex, who was already moving into a defensive position. He made his decision. You know what's funny? James said, reaching slowly into his pack. Everyone thinks Rex here is the galaxy's deadliest predator. He pulled out a small device, a radiation core detector he grabbed from the shuttle. But they haven't met many desperate humans. He threw the detector at the nearest coolant pipe just as Rex wrapped around him protectively. The explosion that followed would have made any demolitions expert proud. As chaos erupted in the chamber, James realized something. It wasn't just about survival anymore. They had to prove that their unusual partnership could change the galaxy for the better. But first, they had to live through the next 5 minutes. The explosion had the desired effect, throwing the bounty hunters into disarray while creating a perfect smokescreen for escape. Through the chaos, James and Rex moved like one being, with Rex flowing around James to protect him from debris, while James guided them through the facility's maze-like corridors. The old data center should be 2 levels down, James said between breaths. If this facility was involved in illegal poaching, there might be records. Rex's patterns pulsed in agreement. Suddenly, the creature stiffened. OTV eras FOLLODOE. Not hunters. My kind. They reached a massive security door, its ancient locking mechanism still operational. As James worked to bypass it, Rex projected images onto the wall, showing more of its kind watching them, evaluating their every move. The door finally creaked open, revealing a vast room filled with old computer terminals and data storage units. Most were dead, but a few still showed signs of power. Cover the entrance, James said, moving to the nearest working terminal. I'll see what I can salvage. As he worked, Rex divided itself, maintaining a protective barrier around James, while also extending tendrils to interface with multiple terminals simultaneously. Data began flowing across screens faster than James could read it. FOUND so meeting. Dark truth. James moved to Rex's terminal, and his eyes widened. The files showed a massive conspiracy. The mining facility had been a front for one of the largest illegal poaching operations in the galaxy. But it went deeper than that. These shipping manifests, James muttered. They're signed by members of the Galactic Council's Security Committee, the same people who branded your species as predators. Rex's patterns turned dark with confirmation. Try D to stop them. PC Fuloli. They respawned D with death. More files appeared, footage of Rex's people attempting to protect endangered species, trying to communicate with authorities, being attacked by security forces that were actually working for the poachers. A massive explosion rocked the facility. The bounty hunters had found them. OVERs, HAVSEN. Watching still. Judging. James downloaded everything he could onto a portable drive. Let them judge. The truth needs to come out. The security door burst inward. Bounty hunters poured through, weapons charged. But before they could fire, something extraordinary happened. The air rippled as dozens of beings like Rex materialized in the room. The bounty hunters found themselves surrounded by some of the most powerful entities in the galaxy. Their leader, a scared man with cybernetic enhancements, laughed nervously. "This isn't your fight," he said. "We have council authority." The largest of Rex's kind moved forward, its patterns translated across every working screen in the room. "Do ATCTD enough. Humans PA case truth. Proves worth." The bounty hunters opened fire, but their weapons proved useless. Rex's people moved like liquid lightning, disarming them with casual ease. In seconds, the hunters were contained, wrapped in living bonds they couldn't break. James stood proudly beside Rex as the leader of its kind approached them. Its patterns were formal but carried a new respect. "GGGMENT made. Bond XCT PT'd. Now HFY truth. With HFY." Rex's patterns brightened with joy, swirling around James in celebration. But James was already thinking ahead. "We'll need to be smart about this," he said. "The council will try to discredit us. We need to release the evidence to multiple sources simultaneously." The leader's patterns showed approval. "Wisdom. Strategy. Human thinkies. Like Guardian." As they began planning their next move, James realized the true significance of what was happening. This wasn't just about clearing Rex's species name anymore. They were about to reshape the galaxy's entire understanding of interspecies relationships. Rex formed one final message before they began their work. "To only you. First day. Saw your HE art. Now, oh there is C2. Looking around at the assembled guardians, the captured hunters, and his closest friend in the universe, James smiled. Sometimes the most dangerous thing in the galaxy wasn't teeth or claws, or even advanced alien biology. Sometimes it was simply the truth, finally set free. They had a lot of work ahead of them, but for the first time, they wouldn't be doing it alone. The next 3 days aboard the reclaimed mining facility became a hub of unprecedented interspecies cooperation. James watched in amazement as more guardians arrived, each bringing pieces of evidence that would expose the Galactic Council's corruption. Rex had positioned itself as the bridge between James and its people, translating the increasingly complex discussions that filled the facility's main chamber. The abandoned mining station had transformed into a command center, with both humans and guardians working side by side. "The Council's emergency session starts in 6 hours, James announced, studying the latest intelligence reports. "They don't know what's coming." Rex's patterns rippled with what James now recognized as determined anticipation. "MORPROFARIVT. Others bring ORCs, centuries of truth." Through the facility's viewing ports, James could see guardian ships arriving. Massive, organic vessels that moved through space with a grace that made conventional ships look clumsy. Each arrival brought more evidence, more witnesses, more proof of the Council's involvement in the galaxy's largest poaching operation. One of the Elder Guardians, whom James had nicknamed Blue for its distinctive color patterns, approached their workstation. "Humans PEAKs our language now. Learns fast." James nodded, having spent countless hours learning to read the Guardian's complex pattern language. It was like learning to read music, mathematics, and emotions all at once. "It helps when you have good teachers," he replied, his words automatically translated into patterns by the facility's upgraded systems. Rex moved closer to James, its patterns showing pride. "First human to TRULVUNTERSTAND. Others whale FOLO." Their planning session was interrupted by an urgent alert. A fleet of Council ships had entered the system. Earlier than expected, James muttered. They must have figured out something was wrong. The Guardians moved with calm efficiency, their patterns coordinating complex strategies without needing to speak. James had learned that their species had been protecting life throughout the galaxy for millions of years. This wasn't their first confrontation with corruption. "Ready?" Rex asked, its patterns showing concern for James. "Born ready," James replied with a grin. "Let's make history." The plan they'd developed was audacious. While the Council expected a conventional confrontation, the Guardians had something else in mind. They would broadcast the truth directly into every communication system in the galaxy, using their unique ability to interface with technology. The Council ships moved into attack formation. James watched as the Guardians took their positions, their massive forms spreading out in a beautiful, synchronized dance through space. Unidentified vessels. A Council commander's voice boomed through the comm. You are harboring fugitives and Class X predators. Surrender immediately. James stepped up to the communication array, Rex by his side. This is James Miller, former Research Station Delta 7. Before you do anything stupid, you might want to check your data feeds. At that moment, every Guardian in the facility activated simultaneously. The combined power of their technological interface abilities overwhelmed the Council's security systems. Across thousands of worlds, billions of screens lit up with the truth. Video evidence of Council members coordinating with poachers. Financial records showing massive profits from endangered species trafficking. Footage of Guardians being attacked while trying to protect dying ecosystems. And at the heart of it all, the story of how one human and one Guardian had brought it all to light. The Council ships stopped their advance. Their communications erupted with chaos as commanders received desperate messages from their superiors. Rex's pattern swirled with satisfaction. Truth spreads. Can not be stopped now. The Elder Guardian Blue approached James again. UAVCHANGDEV or two species. One purpose now. James watched as the Council fleet began to retreat. Reports were already coming in of arrests being made in the Council chambers. The corrupt officials had nowhere to hide. So what happens now? James asked, looking at the assembled Guardians. Rex's response lit up the room. NOWE teach, learn, grow, together. The facility hummed with energy as more Guardians arrived, each bringing new knowledge, new perspectives, new possibilities. Humanity would never see the galaxy the same way again. And it all started because one human refused to see a wounded creature as a monster. The real work was just beginning, but as James stood among his new allies, he knew they were ready for whatever came next. The galaxy was about to learn what humans and Guardians could achieve together. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Assembly fell silent as James walked onto the speaker's platform. 1 year had passed since the revelation that had shaken galactic society to its core. Now, representatives from over 1,000 species watched as a human and a Guardian prepared to address them together. Rex flowed beside James, its patterns calm and dignified. In the past year, they had become symbols of what cooperation between species could achieve. The Chamber's advanced translation systems converted Rex's patterns into words all could understand, while simultaneously displaying James's speech as patterns for the 100 Guardians who floated near the chamber ceiling. A year ago, James began, we thought we knew what danger looked like. We were wrong. The real threat wasn't the Guardians. It was our own fear and prejudice. The Assembly Hall's holographic displays showed images from the past year. Guardian-human joint teams restoring devastated ecosystems, protecting endangered species, and bringing down the last remnants of the galaxy's poaching networks. Rex's patterns shifted, adding to James's words. Learning from humans. They learned from us. Stronger together. The evidence was undeniable. Since the Guardians and humans had begun working together, illegal poaching had dropped by 90%. Endangered species were recovering at unprecedented rates. The galaxy's ecosystems were healing. We stand before you today, James continued, to propose something unprecedented. The creation of the Joint Species Protection Force, humans and Guardians working together officially to protect all life in our galaxy. The chamber erupted in discussion. On the displays, images showed the successes of the past year. James and Rex, leading missions to save endangered species, Guardian-human teams stopping environmental disasters, and the unprecedented sharing of knowledge between the species. An elder Guardian named Storm moved forward, its massive form commanding attention as its patterns filled the chamber. Mill and I, Louis worked alone. Now see beat her way. Humans bring any do perspective, need you hope. The Assembly's new Security Council, purged of corruption after last year's revelations, looked on with interest. The old guard who had profited from poaching were gone, replaced by those committed to genuine protection of galactic life. James activated the final presentation. What we propose isn't just an alliance. It's a new way of thinking. Human adaptability and innovation, combined with guardian wisdom and power. We've already proven it works. Now we're asking to make it official. Rex's patterns danced with enthusiasm. SHO them. The future. The chamber's holographic systems activated, showing the plans for the first Joint Species Academy, a place where humans and guardians would train together, learn from each other, and forge bonds that would protect the galaxy's most vulnerable life forms. The voting began. Species after species registered their support. Even those who had once feared the Guardians now saw the evidence of what cooperation could achieve. As the final votes were tallied, James felt Rex's patterns shift with joy. The resolution had passed unanimously. The Assembly's new chairperson stood. Let the record show that on this day, the Galactic Assembly formally recognizes the Joint Species Protection Force. May this mark the beginning of a new era of cooperation and understanding. James looked at Rex, remembering that first moment in Research Station Delta 7, when he'd chosen to help rather than fear. Rex's patterns swirled with similar memories. One choice changed EVERIT in it. As they left the chamber together, followed by thunderous applause, James saw young guardians and human cadets already gathering outside, eager to begin their joint training. What had started as one human defying expectations had grown into something that would reshape the galaxy. Ready for the next adventure? James asked his friend. Rex's patterns sparkled with amusement. HFY is ready. Still much to teach. Much to learn. They moved together toward their waiting ship, ready to begin their new role as leaders of the protection force. The galaxy was vast, full of wonders to protect and mysteries to solve. But now they would face them together, proof that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't strength or technology. It was the simple choice to see past fear and find friendship in the most unexpected places. The Guardian and the human boarded their ship, ready to write the next chapter in their ongoing story. The galaxy watched them go, knowing that this was just the beginning of something extraordinary. After all, if one human and one Guardian could change everything, imagine what an army of them working together could achieve. The end.